All right, thank you everyone for joining us today. So we have Dr. Kappas. He is a Senior Director of Student Success in the College of Education at NC State. As you know, that pursuing a master or doctoral degree requires a tremendous amount of time and energy. So in this session, students will learn about factors and strategies that contribute to success in graduate school and beyond. Participants will also explore concepts centered on fostering career advancement and purposeful professional development. And the session will be led by Dr. Alex Kappas. He earned a PhD from in higher education, adult and lifelong education program at Michigan State University. And he got a master's degree in education from the University of Georgia and a bachelor's degree in political science from Emory University. He brings over 12 years of professional experience in higher education in a variety of functional areas and institutional types in Georgia, Texas, Michigan, and North Carolina. So welcome, Dr. Kappas, and I will let you take the session.
Sounds great. So Manita, I do think we've got a small enough group. I'd love to get to know you briefly. So if you're willing to share either verbally or in the chat, your name, I can see that on the screen, but where you're tuning in from today, where you are at in your educational journey, and maybe a reason that you logged in today. What was it about this session that made you interested in being here? And maybe we can just popcorn it, so to speak. So that anyone wants to get us started? I see Eric's unmuted. You want to go ahead, Eric?
Sure. So hello, everyone. I'm Eric Russ. I am joining you today from my home in Franklinton, North Carolina. I am a first semester student in the doctoral program with adult workforce and continuing and professional education. And I'm interested in this topic specifically because I'm coming back to education after about a decade break where everything in my life has changed. I have a career, I have a family, and I think that my metrics for success have altered in some ways dramatically since I was last a student.
Nora, you're already unmuted. Go ahead.
So yeah, Nora Lee. The tuning in from thing's an interesting one. I live just outside of Raleigh, but I am actually in the Bronx in New York for 3 weeks, visiting my mom, helping her through some post-surgical stuff. So I am tuning in from the Bronx today. In terms of where I am in my journey, this is my first official enrolled semester at NC State. I actually took a class over the summer as a non-matriculated student, but this is really the beginning for me. And you know, like Eric, my last graduate degree I earned in 2001. I've never gone to school and worked before, so adjusting to all of that. And this degree is almost different for me too, because this is totally optional, right? Like, I'm at a successful point in my career. This is an enhancement to my skill set, but nobody asked me to do this. Nobody told me I had to in order to move my career forward or whatever. This is just something I want to learn about. And so, like Eric, I think that gives me a little different view of what success might look like. But I'm curious, you know, how that applies broadly. So.
Well, hello, everybody. My name's Tim. I am in the Adult Workforce and Continuing Professional Education group, and I am 65 days, 22 hours, and 39 minutes into my program, give or take a minute. It feels a lot longer, but yeah, this is my first semester. Just kind of, I've been telling people, like, not in, you know, some of my friends and family, feels like trying to go out and run a half marathon without practicing or anything. You know, you're just struggling until you start getting that rhythm. So it's been it's been interesting.
Fantastic. And I know that Ming said they're unable to unmute, but would love to see if you'd like to put that here in the chat, Ming, where you're tuning in from. It's always nice when we have a smaller group to be able to be a little more conversational. I've got slides. I'll have some presentation content today, but I do want you to feel like you can literally raise your hand and ask questions throughout the presentation, and make this as interactive as we can. So again, thank you so much, Somanita, for inviting me to be with y'all today and share a little bit about what I believe are some critical components of student success, but also kind of what the session title was, this navigating your niche. How are you carving out and plotting a way forward this degree that you are earning? It adds another level of nuance to your career. It adds some credibility and expertise that maybe you've got some in already, but it maybe formalizes that to the external world, and gives you some things to think about. That's my goal. We've only got an hour together, really 50 minutes left. So my goal is for you to leave this session having thought about something differently, or leaving with something tangible that you might be able to utilize as you navigate your time here at State. And being that I believe everyone is a College of Education student, I hope you'll come to view me as a resource, somebody who can be part of your student success team. As cheesy as that sounds, I think every person needs a personal board of directors, people that they can call on for advice or support, or just to vent to, because there are things to vent about, right? Before we get too far, I do want to honor place. I think that's a really important practice. And NC State University, our university land rests on land originally stewarded by two indigenous tribes, the Tuscarora and the Catawba tribes. And it's an important practice because it really does center our minds and hearts when we think about our own positionality and our own responsibility, really, to be socially responsible leaders, people who are thinking about the current conditions of our communities and how our history, both recent and not so recent, has built the conditions of inequity and injustice in our communities. I also want to acknowledge y'all probably all got an email just about a day or two ago about the tragic loss of one of our College of Education students. This was a first time in college freshman, and so my heart goes out to the student's family, and of course to all of you, because this loss impacts all of us. And it's a stark reminder of just how fragile life is, and the importance of continuing to take care of one another in our community. And being a grad student is tough. You've got many responsibilities. Being a student is just one of them. Some of you are parents, some of you are actively involved leading efforts in your communities or with professional organizations. And so I understand and know that what you've got going on is juggling a lot in the context of a highly polarized and toxic world. And so it takes courage to pursue a grad degree in that kind of environment. So kudos to you for investing in your development and your lifelong learning. So I want to start us off with this very loaded question. What does success mean to you? Go ahead and take a second now. When you hear the word success, what comes to mind? And you can pop words in the chat if you want to unmute and shout out. What are some of the words or phrases or ideas that really come to mind when you think about success? Yep, Nora wrote here in the chat, achieving goals, right? Achieving whose goals would be my question. Hopefully your goals. Those are the most important goals. What else? What else comes to mind when people hear the word success? Anybody think of money? Yeah, I know our society really does privilege that, right? Tim, very good one, feeling accomplished. Nora, recognition. Would love to know a little bit more what you mean by that. Recognition, like recognition, external recognition, or being recognized for your contributions, maybe. Do you want to add to that? You can add in the chat, or you can chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking mostly of external recognition. So whether that's, you know, an award you achieve or somebody, you know, verbally recognizing you in a forum or something like that.
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's nice to feel seen. It's nice to feel recognized. And I'll speak from my experience. I think, especially in my doctoral program, I didn't always feel recognized. I didn't always feel seen. And I think what I learned, and I'm continuing to unlearn, I should say, is to not rely on that external recognition for my own self-efficacy and self-confidence and worth, really. Because again, I think the external validation through money or recognition, sure, it feels good, but it definitely, I do think we have to balance it out with that building of the internal recognition and being knowing that you are worth everything, and that your self-worth is not determined by whether your advisor thinks you're the best student they've ever had, right? But more so that you know that you're given this your absolute best, and that your contributions matter and are making a difference in your niche, right? I love this. Eric wrote confidence. Ming wrote make a difference to my life and others. Yeah, right. I think that's a key one. Seeing positive results. Oh, for sure. To a fault, I really like to see results, right? Tell me we can talk all day about the values we uphold or the things that we care about, both personally and professionally and in our organizations, but what are we actually doing to move the needle on the things that we're claiming to move the needle on, right? Whether that be influencing student learning, whether that's narrowing equity gaps, whether that's creating a stronger, tight-knit community and sense of belonging for all members of the community, right? So y'all hit on some really good ones here. A good mix of how you define success. And really, I didn't want to debate with Somanita when she invited me, but I was like, it's not up to me to determine what student success means. I think it's up to you as the student in these programs to make your own assessment and determination of what success means to you. Now, what I think is the college's responsibility is to learn what your goals are, to learn what success means to you, and to support you in achieving that, achieving whatever it means and whatever it means to achieve success for you. It might mean getting that dream job. It might mean being able to learn skills that help you enter a different field. It may be getting the opportunity to make a contribution, as many of you will, to the scholarly field of your choice, right? And so I do think that's the college's responsibility. And then I always also think a lot about how colleges and universities and any learning organization, really the mission of the learning organization is to influence the environment so that the conditions are not just tolerable or where you feel like you're surviving, but where you can thrive. And that's where I know we are not by any means a perfect college of education. And anyone who tells you that is lying to themselves. They pay my bills, but I can be critical of my own institution, because I think being critical is to not condemn. Being critical is, in fact, to just say, hey, we have work to do. And that's what gets me out of the bed in the morning, knowing that there's plenty of work to be done to support students in achieving the goals that they set out to achieve. So that's how I approach student success in the College of Education, specifically how we define success. Now, of course, we've got pressures from all kinds of folks about, time to degree completion, retention, metrics that show success, right? Like, well, yes, we want to, of course, like, we're here to help you achieve your goals and ultimately get a degree. But I also know there's sometimes experiences that where maybe it doesn't make sense to continue forward in a program if it doesn't match with the student's goals. I'm not going to talk somebody into staying into a program when they could actually move closer to their vision for their why, which we'll get into in a little bit. So by all means, I want to see you graduate from here because you came here for a reason and you've got a why for how this college and this program can actually help you achieve your goals, right? So that's what it's all about. We want to help you achieve your goals, and hopefully have that nice fancy piece of paper and credential to go along with it. So the bulk of when we talk about student success work specifically, I think of a lot about transitions. I think transitions are a really important facet of student success, whether it be transitioning in to a program like many of you are, or making a transition between year 1 and year 2, or making a transition between I'm taking classes to I'm now moving into dissertation stage, or the transition from I'm writing my dissertation or I'm completing my master's program and I'm now hitting the job market, right? These are all, life is nothing but a set of life transitions. And I'll share a little bit of my own life story and how transition has really been the theme of my life. But this theory, really popularized by Nancy Schlossberg, is a theory for supporting adults in transition. And really just gives framework and language to help people think about where they're at right now and how to cope with and how to move successfully through any transition that you're going through, right? When you started these programs, you had to figure out, I can't just keep living life the way I was before I was in this program. I need to figure out how do I accommodate for this program into my life, and how do I alter my relationships and my routines and my situation to be able to at the end of the day write papers, read articles, and contribute to class, right? So Nancy Schlossberg would say that it's really helpful to think about transition in 3 phases: moving in, moving through, and moving out. When you're moving into the transition, that's really when you're brand new, you're in your first semester, you're in your first year. And just knowing that as soon as you get to that 3rd phase of moving out of a transition, you'll probably be entering another transition of some kind. Maybe you'll experience loss during your program of a loved one. Maybe you will experience something joyful. Transition doesn't always have to be something bad, right? It can also be somebody enters your life and becomes the love of your life, right? So you're always going to be going through moving in, moving through, and moving out of various transitions. And some transitions are more dramatic than others, right? Some of y'all had to relocate here to Raleigh. Some of you just had to change your route to class, right? As Nora said here, transitioning from a different school. Schlossberg would also talk about the 4 S's: situation, self, strategies, and support. So these are the top 4 things you can be thinking about as you're navigating your program. Really naming your situation is important. If you're feeling stressed, rationalize it, write it down, think about, okay, I've got my deadlines, what's in my control, what's out of my control. Can I ask my professor for an extension? Is this a at the end of the day, what's in your control and what's not in your control? What are your needs? What do you need? You know, what I realized in my doc program is that I was sitting hunched over looking at a computer screen for a lot of hours out of the day. And I realized that my physical health was taking a toll on my physical health. So I realized, oh my gosh, I am ignoring an entire element of my well-being. I need to incorporate more movement in my life. And so I picked up yoga, and I picked up walking, and I picked up other forms of exercise. So, and that kind of gets into moving from needs to strategies. What are specific things that you can implement into your life? What are new habits that you can form that will help you cope with that transition? For me, it was the fact that I literally had no free time at all. I was working full time and in a job that demands more than 40 hours a week, and I was a doc student. So how do I cope with that? The fact that I now am filling up any ounce of free time that I have with this doc program. Well, I implemented things like weekly meal prep, which I still do to this day. Every single Sunday, I block off like an hour and a half. I've mastered my recipes. I've got my routines down, and every single Sunday I make meal prep. And if you follow me on Twitter, you can see I post every Sunday because it's a form of accountability for myself. And I post my little meal prep for the week. So, and that helps my wife and I have meals usually through Wednesday, sometimes even into Thursday, that we don't have to buy, we don't have to spend money, right? So that was a strategy that I developed to cope with the transition of being in a doc program, and I've kept it. Support. So one of the biggest things is as adult learners, we often think like we've got to do this on our own. We think, well, I'm an adult. I don't want to burden anybody with my issues. It always felt weird walking around with a backpack because I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this. Like I'm back in school. It's very strange, right? And you're walking around and you see the undergrads and you're like, that was so long ago for you, right? And so, you know, I think as adult learners, it's very, very, we're very susceptible to saying, I've got to do this on my own. I've got to figure this out, and not reaching out and saying, I actually don't get the assignment. Dr. So-and-so, can you help me unpack what your expectations are? Or why not turn to some of your classmates and build relationships in your cohort? I will tell you right now, flat out, I would not have graduated from my doctoral program if I did not build relationships with the people in my cohort. We formed a monthly dissertation accountability group, and we checked in with each other. Mind you, I was writing my dissertation during lockdown of the pandemic. And so I joke that I was on lockdown before the lockdown, but the lockdown really affected me because I really do thrive on human interaction, as I think we all do. And it was very isolating. And the dissertation process itself is very isolating. So what support are you going to need at different phases of your program? And how can you invite people in to help support you through your program, right? So that might be maybe not, maybe your partner, for example, isn't going to be super like into the theories and the research and the things that you're interested in, but like sharing the milestones, or at least sharing like, hey, just want you to know, like, I've got a big paper due next Thursday, so I need support with this and this week, right? Like proactive communication on your needs, right? Who can support you? Who can help you? And even especially with the self-doubt, there's a lot of literature on the concept of imposter syndrome, and specifically our most minoritized members of the community face that at much higher rates, but everybody faces some level of imposter syndrome. I still don't feel like I have a doctorate. Like I'm waiting for the knock on the door that they say like, we made a mistake, you didn't actually earn a doctorate. But I still have to like, people call me Dr. Kappas. I'm like, just call me Alex, please, but that imposter syndrome is very real. And specifically if you are belong to either a gender identity or a racial background or a first language status, any form of identity where you are not necessarily in the quote unquote majority, you face the imposter syndrome even more. So it's even more important that you are finding systems of support. And that's one of the things I feel like is a incredibly important part of my role here in the college, is to help build communities of support. So I lead graduate student services in the College of Education. We spam you every Monday with opportunities. I hope that you read that newsletter, because that's where we try to put all the programs, all the services, all the opportunities that you have, the affinity groups, the networking opportunities, the workshops. It's important. And it's important. I know that you don't have time to do this stuff, but maybe pick out 2 or 3 things that you're going to go to each semester. And that might be a difference maker. You might run into a faculty member going to an in-person program, and that faculty member might serve on your committee, right? So think about these and the involvement as a part of your success. The more involved you are, the more connected you feel to the college. Research it shows the more apt you are to make these connections and to ultimately feel supported as you achieve your goals. I want to share a little bit about my journey, because I think it's just helpful to get a sense of who I am and what I value, and how my career has unfolded. Because I think it kind of demonstrates this whole concept of transition. So I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio. I am the son of a middle school teacher and a Vietnam veteran, and I'm really proud of those roots. But when I got to college in Georgia, that's where I had a rude awakening to just the very limited scope of the world that I had coming from the town that I came from in Ohio. Most of the people I knew up in Ohio were Catholic, white folks who viewed the world in a very specific way. And so coming to a place like Atlanta, Georgia, which is truly a very international city, and going to a university that really prides itself on bringing people together across differences, that's really what set my career and my passion for higher education into motion, was my own college experience and the growth that I experienced. And so I decided to go all in on a career in higher education. I got a master's degree in college student development at the University of Georgia. I worked for the university while I earned my master's degree in college student development, and never looked back. I've worked in student services now for 12. I don't know if that's really true. I don't know how many years. It's maybe 15 at this point. You lose count, but I've worked in a variety of institution types and fields, and 4 different states, which I'll get into here for a second. So moved out to Austin, Texas. I worked for the University of Texas at Austin. I worked in new student programs. We saw over 50,000 students go through our programs every year. We had a staff of 100 student leaders, and I co-taught a leadership development class. I then moved into our Dean of Students office after tragedy struck our office. Our director actually passed away unexpectedly. And so it kind of threw us into a lot of turmoil. So ended up taking on different roles and responsibilities because of that. And then ultimately ended up with a position in the Dean of Students office, where I was kind of a special assistant type role to our dean at the University of Texas, doing special projects, doing hazing investigations, all kinds of things, responding to protests. I was there when the Confederate statues came under fire and finally came down. So really, really incredible professional experience. Moved up to Michigan in 2015, 2016, somewhere around there, and secured a role working in financial aid. I'd never worked in financial aid before. And so moved into like a very different area, a more transactional area of student life at a university. Did not love it. And I ended up within 6 months of being at that in that role, found a different role at that university. But I wouldn't trade that for anything. I ended up gaining a lot of skills and perspectives working in that financial aid office. And actually after it, I was asked to co-chair a special initiative to form a financial wellness center on our campus. So we did financial education as well as a basic needs support, food pantry, and housing insecurity initiative. So I leveraged that experience to say, okay, I don't love financial aid. It's very transactional. It's not really my style, but I see a need and I'm going to advocate for it. And I made enough noise that I ended up moving into a different role, but I took on some other duties as assigned. At that same time, I started the doc program at Michigan State in higher adult and lifelong education. I moved to North Carolina in 2020, secured a role in at a community college. It was the first time I worked in a community college. Absolutely loved it, fell in love with the mission of the community college system. And I worked in student success there. And I taught, and then I wrote my dissertation at the same time. And then this position came open about a week before I defended my dissertation. And I said, that is my dream job. I want to work for that College of Education at NC State and support graduate students and undergraduate students pursuing all different fields of education. So ended up here at NC State. And this has been kind of a mantra throughout my career is I had a teacher in high school who said the purpose of an education isn't to make you better than others, but to make you better for others. I think Ming said that in the chat that, you know, when you are out here trying to achieve your goals and your success, yes, of course, like own it, own your success, but also in my experience, the more that you reach out and you color outside the lines, the more opportunities you will have to make an impact on the community. And those are the most memorable and the most meaningful things that I've done throughout my career. You might be wondering, okay, Alex, why did you move all around the country? And this is a big part of my story. So picture here on the left is of my wife and I with her younger brother, Estevan. Back in Texas, we became legal guardians to Estevan when he was a high school student. We saw him through high school. We saw him go off to college. We supported him through college. This is him on his college graduation day. And then the picture on the right is my wife when she graduated from medical school in 2020. And so that's why we moved around a lot. So my wife and I, we met in Georgia. She started a career in public health. She did public health research at the Texas-Mexico border and throughout Texas. And then she put her dreams on hold for a while to pursue a career in medicine to take care of her brother. And then we moved up to Michigan. And then North Carolina, this is where she's doing her advanced training after medical school at Duke. So Estevan and Kristen really are, when I think of student success and resilience and pushing past barriers, especially systemic racism and sexism, they really have taught me more than any textbook could ever tell me about those. And their examples have just taught me more than I can ever truly express when it comes to navigating transition in life and supporting students and loved ones. So that's a bit about me. I'm going to jump into kind of more of a lecture-based section here. But before we do that, I want us to do a little interactive activity because I don't like just talking at people. So I'm going to ask some questions. And I ask that we abide by these ways of engagement, that we're respectful with each other, we can agree to disagree, and that we engage. You know, the more we chat with each other today in these last 20-ish minutes, the more we'll learn and take away from the session. So career myths and truths. So, you know, I want us to take a second now. Have you ever used the Zoom raise hand feature? So if you navigate, I want you to test it right now. You go to the little emoji reaction button, and I want you to click raise hand, not react with an emoji, but the raise hand feature. So, okay, So what I'm going to do, go ahead and put your Zoom hands down. I'll read out some statements. If you agree with the statement, or if you think the statement is a truth, I want you to raise your Zoom hand. Okay. If you think it is it's not a truth, then I want you to keep your hand down. All right. Pretty simple. So just raise your hand when you see the statement, if you think it's a truth. If not, then I'll assume you think it's false. Okay. All right, let's start with an easy one here. Howling Cow ice cream is the best ice cream in Raleigh, North Carolina. Raise your Zoom hand if you agree with this. Eric's given it some thought. Oh, wow. Okay, tough crowd. Tough crowd. I'll pass along the review. Okay, Nora, you've got to try it. Come on over to campus. Over in Tally, they've got they've got the ice cream out. All right, job and career mean the same thing. Raise your Zoom hand if you think job and career mean the same thing. All right. What you study determines your career. What do y'all think about that? Okay. All right. I know exactly what I want to do. And this is, okay, y'all, you caught me. I'm reusing a presentation. I know exactly what I want to do after I finish my program. Okay. Tim, you've got certainty. Okay. All right. Zoom hand down. A person only has one career in a lifetime. What do y'all think about that? Agree or disagree? Person only has one career in a lifetime. Okay. You need direct experience in your field of interest in order to get a job in that area. Eric's on the fence about that one. No one's raising their hand. Okay. There's only one right way to write a personal statement. What do you think? Okay. No one reads the cover letter, so don't bother spending time on it. I had to hold back my laughter on that one. Okay. All right. Nora believes that. Okay. A cover letter and a personal statement can be the same thing. What do you think? Okay. All right, let's debrief this. So quick reactions. There were a couple of ones that you were on the fence about. What do you think? Why were you on the fence with some of these ones? I'm gonna call Eric out.
Looking for the unmute button. I'm used to Microsoft Teams, so everything moves. I think some of these questions, there's like a practical answer that can often be somewhat powerful in determining whether. I think my instinct for all of them was really not to raise my hand, but I'm thinking through my own experiences, and I've also had to hire people, and I know that some of these things in reality, while we ideally think they shouldn't, they operate that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that you had some conflict between what you would hope, or what you would espouse, or would hope that organizations espouse, but then you're like, well, what's the reality? Yeah. Good call. Any other reactions to these questions? What about the career? No one raised their hand for one career in a lifetime. What's up with that?
I already broke that rule.
Yeah, I've reinvented myself multiple times, so
All right. Okay, we're gonna get into that. I really want to unpack that a bit. So let's talk about career theory. So Donald Super, often referred to as like the father of career development theory, would actually argue that you have one career in a lifespan, but you take on different roles. But it all can fit under one umbrella, or I think he uses this phrase, the life umbrella. And so as you age, you have these different roles. You have environmental factors, you have situational determinants, personal determinants, and that throughout your life, you may take on different roles, but thinking about one of the strategies that Super really buys into is, yes, think about them as chapters. Use the words chapters though, right? If I pulled this book over here, there are many chapters in one book, right? The book overall is tied together with a common thread. And so one of the things that Super would say is, how are you tying together your maybe very different life experiences and jobs and careers into a cohesive, woven together story that helps you make meaning of your life, right? And ultimately, not just make meaning of your life, but go get that dream job or go start that business where you have woven together the compelling story that is your life into a way that that honors all the life experience that you bring. Because here's the thing: if you let's say you've had very different, right, to the fact of like they're different chapters, right? They feel very distinct. You still have skills and perspectives that you've gained from those experiences that inform your current chapter that you're on, right? And common values that you hold dear. And so that's really where Super would say, you know, when you're kind of thinking about your career, and I encourage y'all to be thinking about many of you are early in your program right now, but it's important to be thinking about, as this thing progresses, your program, how are you thinking about what you're going to utilize this credential, what you're going to utilize this degree to leverage in terms of your career? And so the first is really the who am I? What are my skills, values, attributes, accomplishments? What can I do in the world of work? And this is where your degree, the one you're pursuing right now, it's going to open doors of possibilities that were not open to you previously. So thinking about how can you gain more field-specific know-how and network to have an understanding of the possibilities in your world of work. Maybe you've never thought about being self-employed, but perhaps that's the route for you after this degree. Maybe you've never thought about becoming a faculty member, but perhaps after this program, you're thinking about that now. Or perhaps you've never thought about research being the driver of your career, right? So what are the possibilities? What are your options? And finally, how do you get there? So creating an action plan for yourself. And that could start this weekend, right? Never too early to make sure that your cover letter is up to date, to make sure that your CV and your resume are up to date, because there may be a fellowship you apply to help fund your grad program, or there may be a job opportunity that pops up during your program. So where we've been, it's really important to do that critical self-work on what are some of the major influences you've had on your life, who are some of the major influential people, and then how does your story connect with the potential opportunities that you want. So the key here is connect the dots for your reader, right? And your reader meaning your audience, either the reader of your cover letter or the reader who's reading your verbal language in an interview. So a good example of this, I'll just use myself and my life, my story. Tim already knows that my dissertation focused on politically engaged college students in the 2020 election. And I was a political science major in college. And I moved away from, I didn't go into political science. I've not worked in politics, but I've always kept up with politics and I've always been engaged in the community. And so, and at the same time, that was mostly outside of work. And I had this whole career in college student administration. And when I came to my doc program, it was much later in my doc program that I decided I actually want to study. I want to bring together that interest in college student learning and development with my interest in politics. And it just clicked. It just made sense. I'm going to write my dissertation on this. This will be my niche. And in navigating my niche, my job here, there's nothing in my position description that says that I'm doing democratic or civic engagement, right? But I've created those opportunities for myself. I joined the Pack the Polls Coalition at NC State. And guess what? When you push for things and we color outside the lines, things happen, right? And our dean ended up catching wind of a few of our faculty colleagues' interest in civic engagement, and she challenged every college at NC State to a civic education challenge, which you've probably seen some of the branding and stuff around. And so that's been a way that I've been able to weave that into my job, even though it's not the core function of my job. I'm still making sure that I'm fostering that part of my life. I'm writing a book chapter right now in a political engagement book. I'm writing a journal article based on my dissertation. I presented on my dissertation just recently. So how are you using your niche to help foster? And your niche is that, what's your why? What's the thing that you really bring to the table that's your differentiating factor? I think it's important to reflect on what you've learned so far throughout your career and throughout your program. So what are the skills, both the hard skills and the soft skills that you've developed? And what are some skills that you still need to develop, or you want to sharpen, or you want to get tangible experience to back it up? And look at what are the employers asking for, right? Look at this is generally, this is the job outlook from the National Association of Colleges and Employers, NACE. This is what they're looking for: problem-solving skills, initiative, work ethic, right? These are all things that y'all demonstrate already. But what are the industry-specific skills that maybe you need to dig into to get the kind of jobs or to have the kind of opportunities that you want after your program, which gets into where you're going. I'm going to play this short clip here because it really gets at why it's important to know why you're doing this. Why are you pursuing a grad degree? How is this all coming together? And how ultimately are you weaving together your story into a compelling why? Not just for the external audience, but for yourself as well.
Why that Martin Luther King led the civil rights movement? He wasn't the only man who suffered in a pre-civil rights America, and he certainly wasn't the only great orator of the day. Why him? And why is it that the Wright brothers were able to figure out controlled powered manned flight when there were certainly other teams who were better qualified, better funded, and they didn't achieve powered manned flight, and the Wright brothers beat them to it? There's something else at play here. About 3.5 years ago, I made a discovery, and this discovery profoundly changed my view on how I thought the world worked, and it even profoundly changed the way in which I operated it. As it turns out, there's a pattern. As it turns out, all the great and inspiring leaders and organizations in the world, whether it's Apple or Martin Luther King or the Wright brothers, they all think, act, and communicate the exact same way, and it's the complete opposite to everyone else. All I did was codify it. And it's probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean, what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? And why should anyone care? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, A marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done. That's how most sales is done. And that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do. We say how we're different or how we better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You're ready to buy a computer from me. All I did was reverse the order of the information. What it proves to us is that people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple. But as I said before, Apple's just a computer company. There's nothing that distinguishes them structurally from any of their competitors. Their competitors are all equally qualified to make all of these products. In fact, they tried. A few years ago, Gateway came out with flat screen TVs. They're eminently qualified to make flat screen TVs. They've been making flat screen monitors for years. Nobody bought one.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop it there. That's Simon Sinek. If you've not seen him, he does some really great writing and obviously speaking, great order on purpose and finding your why and really having that drive what you're doing. My challenge to you tonight, or maybe this weekend, is write out 3 to 5 sentences to share your why. What is at the heart of why you do what you do, how you do it. For me, it is about creating a more socially just and equitable world through education. That's my umbrella. I've had a lot of different jobs in education. I've worked in a lot of different functional areas within higher education, but I could see myself in 5, 8, 10 years doing something in industry or doing something, as long as it ties back to my why, I can accommodate for it, right? And so really thinking about what are the values, what are the things that really drive you, and maybe it's putting people first. Maybe it's really leveraging technology to make people's lives better, right? And then you can weave together and make sense of as you navigate your career. I'm running low on time, so I'm going to speed through some things. Yes, these slides will be available. I'll share them with you, and would be happy to chat with anyone after the session, or we can schedule a time to chat. But if you're on the market or you're applying to things, personal statements, these are some of my top tips. Like I said, I will share these out, and same with cover letters. My biggest tip for cover letters and personal statements is you've got to make them personal. You've got to make them personalized to the opportunity. If you're sending the same cover letter and the same personal statement to every job and organization, it's not a winning strategy. You've got to speak to them and their values and tie your values and your experiences to how you're going to help make their organization better. Planning your search, we can talk about that someday. But all in all, life is nothing but a series of transitions, right? I'll end how I started. Before you know it, you're going to look up and you're going to be at dissertation phase, or you're going to look up and you're going to be applying to graduation. And so there will also be days you look up and the finish line feels really far away, or you feel like you've encountered some challenges as a student here. And that's when I want you to remember that guy in a sweater cardigan who presented to you on Zoom. And I want you to reach out to me because that's my job. My job is to help you as you navigate barriers and challenges, help you problem solve, and ultimately help you achieve your goals and your success. So I'll stop there. I will invite questions. I'm willing to stay a few minutes after, and of course, follow-ups are always encouraged. I know I'll see Tim in class next week. But thank you all so much for tuning in today. I hope you found a nugget of inspiration in some of what I shared today. But y'all have been such a lovely audience, and I'm glad I got to spend some time with you today. No better way to spend the lunch hour. So any questions or anything folks want to ask me about before we officially close out?
Thank you so much, Dr. Kappas. You did inspire. I hope everyone in here be inspired from your journey of, towards success, especially all the transitions like Nora mentioned. She has to transition from one school to another, and, different people have different types of transitions. And anyone has any questions for Dr. Kappas? He is the best of the best. Like, his advice gonna help you at least, move forward from getting stuck.
I can't disagree until after the semester, so.
Oh, that's hilarious. Eric, I saw you unmute for a second. Did you have a question or something you wanted to share?
I just wanted to say thank you. This was helpful, so I appreciate your time.
Awesome. What was the most helpful thing? What was a concept that you're going to leave this session today thinking about?
I think centering my and articulating my personal statement sounds kind of weird, but just hearing you talk about it feels like I have permission to do that, and articulating it and being specific. I think the power of language and the power of thought, when you make something specific and you write it down, you make it real. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I just was listening to a podcast last night, and the person was talking about setting goals, and they said the goals aren't real until you write them down. And I kind of disagree with that to some extent, but I was like, no, that's kind of true. Like, writing it down, there's power in the written language, and writing it down allows us to revisit and revise and track. And I'm a big fan of mantras, just short phrases or things that can help us through challenging times. My wife and I, we use the mantra, like, just keep moving. And literally we'll write that on a Post-it note and put it on the bathroom mirror. And that's just sort of a mantra of, like, yes, rest. It's okay if you're moving slower, but, like, keep moving, keep inching forward. There are going to be days in this program, I guarantee you, where you don't feel like opening that laptop. You don't feel like making progress on whatever you're working on. That's probably your body and your mind and your heart telling you you need to unplug, you need to move, physically move, and do something for yourself and your well-being. And it doesn't have to be like a 30-minute jog. It could be walk to the mailbox and back. It could be do some stretches. It could be listen to some good music. It could be call an old friend. The dissertation, especially those of you in the doc programs, dissertation journey is very isolating. So finding ways to care for yourself, definitely. But write it down. I'm a huge proponent of that. Nora, anything you want to share? Or I know you unmuted.
I was just going to say thank you as well. I actually need to run to a work meeting because you know how that goes.
I know. Well, thank you so much for being here, Nora, and everybody. I really, really appreciate y'all being a receptive and kind audience. And again, Somanita, for creating this space and this opportunity for engagement over the lunch hour.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kappas. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, y'all. Be well. See you
Cheers.
around. Be in touch.
Thank you all.
Thank you.